Hey, what's going on, everybody? Happy Friday to y'all. It's Dr. Schilling with Sequoia Health, bringing you this week's Friday live Q&A. And just want to welcome everybody to this week's sessions of questions. Looks like Hope's joining the party. How you doing, Hope? So basically, I'm going to try a new format. I'm going to list out the questions that people have sent in, so when people start watching this video, they know what kind of questions we're going to answer, so that people can have an understanding of what there is going to be presented today. And then feel free to ask your questions along the way, so that we can provide that information for you. Give me 1 second here. There we go. This gets a little loud out there in the clinic with everybody here. All right, cool. So today we're going to talk about some different subjects. Sudden weight gain, blue light glasses, sleep apnea, questions about eggs, blood clots, genetic testing, favorite books, Feng shui, when to say sorry if it's appropriate, and freckles and moles forming, words to avoid to improve health. Let's see. Eating food from a can, if you want to go, we'll go there. And why do most people have less than perfect eyesight? Okay, so give a couple seconds here. Looks like Melissa Jenkins joined the party. Hi, Melissa. Looks like Shaughnessy's with us. Welcome, everyone. Hope everybody's having a great Friday. I know we're having a good time here. A lot of exciting things going on. They're making a lot of noise next door for our construction. Put up a temporary wall because they're continuing to build out the other side. We have about 4-5 weeks or so until we'll be changing this whole clinic from one side to the other. And it's exciting. So we're really excited about what's going on here. A lot of people need help. We're excited to grow and to help everybody help themselves. So let's start with the first question of the day so we can optimize our time together. The question is, sudden weight gain and or water retention / feeling puffy without a change in diet, activity level, etc. Please explain. All right. Hey, Ella, how you doing? And so what we want to appreciate is that sudden changes are usually due to stresses in your life. If you think about weight gain, you're really not gaining weight in an instant like that. You might be retaining water, which is most likely resulting from unexpected shocks and surprises, and that would be squarely placed on the shoulders of your kidneys. So if you're holding on to water and you're feeling puffy and things like that, or it could be bloating in your digestive system that makes you feel uncomfortable as well. But it doesn't require a change in diet, although diet can cause inflammation in your body. What you want to appreciate is that sudden changes like that is usually related to a decrease in your body's excretory pathways. So you're either not sweating it out, you're not peeing out, you're not pooping it out or something like that, or your digestive system is not moving very well. And as a result, you're holding on to things. So sudden changes like that, you want to take a step back and say, okay, where is the stress that I'm experiencing? Where is the unexpected shocks or surprises I'm dealing with? What am I having trouble letting go of? Things like that. Because ultimately, if there's a change in your body and you haven't had traumatic injury on the outside, the body's breaking down on the inside. So I always want to take a step back and say, what is it that's going on in my body that's causing me to have changes? So water retention specifically, your kidneys are what decide how much water you hold on to and how much water you let go. Your liver actually stores a lot of water. It's like a reservoir, and your colon resorbs water, like sucks it back up. And so that's one of our big problem. If you're not pooping, you're not getting your toxins out, your body's going to suck them back up, and they're going to have to get passed through your system again, go back to your liver and things like that. And your liver might not be working properly in the first place. So really, the idea of sudden weight gain is really almost an impossibility. You can't just magically gain 5 pounds. You can pretty instantaneously start holding on to 5 pounds of water if your body's not letting go of it. But you want to look into, again, I'll just reiterate, the unexpected shocks and surprises and things like that can affect your system. Obviously, family members being diagnosed with something, you having a health condition, a family member going to the hospital, a child being injured, a family member being injured, anything like that can shock a person into having stuff like that. Depending on where you're holding on the water, whether it's across your abdomen, in your legs and things like that, that'll determine what part of your brain it's related to. And that will also help you understand what kind of stress. So if you all of a sudden have swollen lower legs, that's going to be maybe feeling unable to keep up with some aspect of your life. Ankles is like needing balance or lack of balance and things like that. Oftentimes people get like water on their knee, fluid around their knee. That's related to uncertainty and ability to move forward and things like that. So there's just a bunch of different areas, okay? The torso is all about feeling stuck, not being able to break through, not being able to get through something as a result of that. So there's a lot of different aspects of it. If you have questions, just send us a picture of where you're experiencing fluid levels, and we'll start asking you a bunch of questions as far as what you need help with and how you can tease it out yourself. We had a question about blue light glasses. What are some reputable brands? This comment comes from someone who says their cousin swears by them. She got a pair off of Amazon. But are those the actual decent options? There's a lot of quote-unquote decent options out there. We trust the Hedron brand because we appreciate like the energetics that they use. You know, for example, I'm wearing Hedron pendant, which is going to help balance my heart energy, my heart chakra, heart energy center. And so they make Hedron glasses. They're going to protect against blue light, keep your eyes from getting overstimulated and things like that. So that is the brand that we trust best. Ultimately, you're going to have to evaluate them and or send us a picture of them in the email, like info@sequoiahealth.com, or send us it in a messenger so we can evaluate them for you. But so I'm without specific names, I can't tell you or provide any insights on specific brands out there. I can just tell you the one we trust because we know the technology is sound and I know the people who own the company. I don't receive any feedback or monetary compensation from them for talking about their products. I just trust them and I trust their products and I know they work very effectively, so that's why we utilize them. Hedron Life Source is a great company. Jared and trying to remember his wife's name, but they're great people. So hopefully that answers your question. But yes, they do work. They block the light to keep your brain from being overstimulated, which is really helpful, especially at night. If you haven't already turned your iPhone or your Samsung onto the night shift mode, so you only get the yellow light, not the blue light, you can do a great job as far as keeping your brain from being overstimulated, which what it's ultimately going to do is going to mess up your sleep cycle, because ultimately when the sun goes away, we should definitely go to bed. And if we're continuing to stimulate our brain with a lot of blue light, it's going to stimulate our brain, change our pineal gland function, because our pineal gland determines how much light, it determines your sleep cycle based on how much light is coming in your eye. So if you're up at 11, 12, 1 o'clock in the morning, and you're still getting beamed by a bright light in your eyes, then what you're doing is you're stimulating your brain. You're going to change your circadian rhythm cycle, which is ultimately going to mess up your sleep. You're going to potentially end up waking up tired and things like that. So you just want to understand that that has very significant impact on your health, okay? So the next question is, why does sleep apnea happen in otherwise healthy people? Not overweight, in other words, is what the question comes in as. What are the causes and the treatments? Sleep apnea, I'm not sure the exact definition, but if you imagine someone who stops breathing at night, has air hunger and things like that, that is a sign that they're not getting enough oxygen and that their body is actually so inflamed that it's cutting off their airway. People wear different things like dental appliances to keep their airway open, to keep their tongue down, if you will, from pressing on the uvula and constricting the throat. That's one option. There's a CPAP machine, which if you're not controlling the humidity levels and the amount of moisture, it can tend to dry you out. Some of the machines are loud, but you're also connected to a device that's being fed by electricity, so it's pushing electricity toward your body and things like that. So you want to avoid that as much as possible. But ultimately, all sleep apnea is related to adrenal fatigue and or adrenal exhaustion, as well as you're going to look at inflammation in your guts. So what we recommend people doing is doing a modified elimination diet where you cut out all the inflammatory foods as much as you possibly can. And for those who are trying to wean themselves off of CPAP or are getting grief from their partner or their spouse because they're snoring in bed, what you want to do is lay on your side and prop things behind you so you can't roll. That'll help you stay on your side and keep your tongue away from your throat and keep that from getting constricted. But some people have sleep apnea and their throat is actually constricted. It's not necessarily their tongue on their uvula, although that can happen, but it's really just the massive inflammation and then, of course, the adrenal exhaustion, because their system is so wiped out, they're just so tired, their body's just barely hanging on. So understand that there are simple things you can do to not only overcome using a CPAP machine, but you can also overcome sleep apnea in general. You need to have a regular sleeping routine. go to bed at the same time, get up at the same time. I would strongly encourage every human being to exercise first thing when they get up in the morning. It's going to feed your brain, give you BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor, which is going to supercharge your brain for the day, help you be the most effective, the most dialed in, most tapped in, turned on, tuned in to what's going on in your day. We have an anti-inflammatory guide for food. If you don't know, go on our website. You can easily grab it from there. Providing that information is going to decrease the inflammation in your body, which is going to help you avoid any sleep apnea. You also may need some B vitamins and some other tools to help support your adrenals. Selenium is great for that as well. You can eat Brazil nuts if you'd like for that, if you don't want to take some type of supplement. But really what you want to think about is decreasing your inflammation overall. You need to stay well hydrated and decrease your inflammation. Okay, so go to bed at the same time, get up at the same time, eat an anti-inflammatory diet, drink adequate fluids, exercise, and you should be able to overcome sleep apnea. Because if you're quote unquote an otherwise normal healthy person and you're not overweight, doesn't mean you can't be inflamed. There are plenty of skinny fat people out there, and that's not to shame or blame anybody, but just because you have a thinner frame does not mean you don't have excess fat on the inside of your body. Some people carry it on the outside, some people carry it on the inside. So those of us who can maintain a reasonably normal body mass as far as distribution between your muscle mass and your fat mass, doesn't mean you don't have inflammation in your body. Okay, there's plenty of people that go on throughout their lives with being inflamed and still having a quote unquote normal body. So I hope that answers your question there. If you need more information on it, let us know. And then of course you have the incredible edible egg, as they call it. It's been cheered and maligned many different times throughout history. Sometimes, one decade it's cheered, next decade it's maligned, blamed and said it's the cause of heart disease because of all the cholesterol in there and things like that. Ultimately, I think everything in moderation is good. Eggs are fine for certain people. Some people have really, really strong sensitivities to them. Eggs are very seriously affecting some people. They do culture a lot of vaccines in eggs as far as growing the vaccine medium and stuff like that. What they use proteins like proteins from peanuts and proteins from eggs to help your body absorb vaccines better. So eggs can be a problem with certain people who have adverse reactions to different vaccines. But generally speaking, I would say if you enjoy eggs, which I do, I would maybe eat them 3 days a week. I know there's plenty of people that say, oh, I eat them every day and they're fantastic. And I think you can get too much of a good thing. And if you understand that, then you can say, okay, I need to balance my food. I need to balance what I'm eating. I need to have a good variety. So understanding that, you can say, okay, out of 7 days in the week, I'm going to consume eggs, let's say 3 to 4 of the days. But take a break in between each one of them. You can have breakfasts that are consisting of meat and nuts. Eggs are good on an occasional basis. You can have sausages, things like that. It just depends on how you want to make it, but generally speaking, your body's best geared because it has the highest level of acid in the stomach in the morning. It's geared for proteins in the morning, and so if you can prioritize that in the morning instead of waiting till the end of the day when you've exhausted all your reserves and your body has very little stomach acid because you're tired and you've worked all day, then you can understand that it's better to prioritize the proteins earlier in the day and at the lunchtime hour, if you will. But yes, eggs are good for certain people. Best thing to do is pay attention to how you feel once you've eaten one. If you don't have a good reaction, if you have any gas or bloating, or if you, whether burping is another issue people might have, those are all issues. Basically, if you eat anything and you have an adverse reaction, like you get a symptom afterward, whether it's within the first 2 hours or 2 to 4 hours after, you want to understand that you might want to dig into that and say, why is my body reacting? Something good to consider there. What else? Hopefully that answers your question. It's fine in moderation. It's great. Blood clots. Blood clots, of course, what you want to think about blood clots and strokes, the real cause. All right, so much to the contrary to people's opinions, your heart is not a pump, although it is a pump of sorts. It's not like forcing things through. It's actually a type of pump where it waits for certain pressures to build up in one chamber and then it collapses into the next and then it just feeds it around. But your heart is really an electromagnetic center to your body, and what it does is it creates a charge on the red blood cells, And when red blood cells have proper charge on them, they are like little coins, and if they have repelling charges, they'll keep each other away. Okay, there'll be space between them as they pass through your arteries and veins. What happens when they lose their electromagnetic charge and they become depolarized, they can start stacking on each other like coins, okay? And that coin action can turn into a clot per se. So when you have decreased electromagnetic field in your body and you don't have proper charges on your blood cells, they can't, first of all, pass through your body very efficiently, which is why people get numbness and tingling and neuropathy-like symptoms in the bottoms of their feet and or climbing up their legs, because they just don't have enough energy in their body to properly balance their electromagnetic field down in their feet and things like that. So understanding that you have to have a good charge on your body, good healthy electromagnetic field in your body, which can help, you can help produce that through proper diet, proper hydration, exercising, proper sleep, and then when you don't have enough of those or you can't get the right mix together, then you use pulsed electromagnetic field therapy, or PEMF, which we do a lot of here. But ultimately a stroke is a result of a blockage in an artery or vein, okay, depending on what it is. Typically it's an artery, but it can also happen in vein. What you want to understand is when these things happen, it blocks the flow, which means you don't get enough oxygen pass through, and as a result then that can infarct or some dead tissue around that area, and that's, you know, both ultimately what a stroke is. You're having death of the tissue around where a blockage happened, okay? Now you can have watershed strokes. There's a certain part of your head that's in your brain that's called a watershed stroke. You can have a local infarct. You could have a blockage in your carotid artery, which would stop your vertebral artery going to your brain and things like that. There's a lot of different things that can cause that, but ultimately, if you understand and you take a step back and you say, okay, why would my blood cells stick together in the first place? And it's not for lack of anticoagulant like warfarin or anything like that, which is rat poison. You want to understand that if your cells are healthy, if they're well charged and they have their charges that oppose each other, just like two north poles of a magnet or two south poles of a magnet, if you try to push them together, they'll push each other apart. And so you have to have healthy charge in your body. That's why, you know, in this world of high radiation like 5G and radio waves and radar and stuff like that, what's happening is our electromagnetic field is being decreased, and that's decreasing our body's ability to propel things through our body as far as the electromagnetic field. It's weakening our heart, it's weakening our immune system and things like that. So the best thing you can do to prevent things is to exercise, drink adequate healthy fluids. You can sleep adequately, so proper food, proper sleep, proper exercise, hydration, and then you can do pulse magnetics on top of that if you don't have enough support on those, okay? I mean, given it's summer now, you could, spring actually, you can go out in the country and walk around barefoot in the grass and absorb some energy from the earth, but that's kind of like a gentle mist at this point. Sometimes you need a Category 5 hurricane energy to kind of get your system back on track, and that's where we use PEMF coming in. So you can prevent strokes. Strokes don't happen to everyone. If you have an issue with your blood vessels, typically it's an inability to go with the flow, no pun intended as far as your blood flow, but the neuroemotional stress related to blood vessels is inability to go with the flow. So that's one thing to consider if you know someone who has a stroke. There's several things that go on. It's not one thing. No one thing causes any one thing. So there's a bunch of stuff that's going to cause that to be a contributing factor, if you will. Looks like Sarah joined the party. Hi, Sarah. All right. So your perspective on genetic testing for what one should eat or eat for your body type. So there are different things in your genetic code. So Gene Moyer's back. Hi, Gene. There are different things in your body as far as your genetic code. Now, your DNA is not your destiny. Your DNA is your opportunity. So if you understand that, what you want to appreciate is that each one of us has to experiment, regardless of our gene pool, with what works for us. Eating certain things at certain times, eating certain amounts of certain things at certain times, and whatnot. There is no diet/lifestyle on this planet that is beneficial for everyone. Our anti-inflammation guide is designed to help you decrease your inflammation and help you get the most energy and sleep the best. But even in that, like once you have balanced blood sugar, you're going to want to figure out like how much carbohydrate load do I need in the morning, how much carbohydrate do I need in the afternoon and evening. But if you have unbalanced blood sugar, you're going to have really big troubles with mood swings, with energy balance, with your sleeping at night. Those are all going to be a challenge. So when you can understand that, you can understand, okay, my first and foremost priority when it comes to food is to balance my blood sugar. And I believe the best way to do that is to eat fats and veggies and proteins in the morning and at lunch, and prioritizing your carbohydrates, your complex carbohydrates in the evening, taking the burden off your digestive system in order to get your best sleep at night. Now, certain people who wake up in the middle of the night and have constantly chronic blood sugar issues as far as crashing at night, they might need to eat some protein in the evening, maybe a protein shake, a couple 3 ounces of water and a half a scoop of protein to get that in, because that's going to be a slower burning fuel in the middle of the night, rather than having, let's just say you had potatoes and good red potatoes and let's say some asparagus for dinner at 7 o'clock or 6 o'clock or something like that. If you stay up late and you're up until 11 o'clock at night, you're not in bed by 9 or 9:30 or 10, then your body's going to be continuing to burn, and you're going to end up potentially waking up in the middle of the night from having an imbalanced blood sugar. But that doesn't necessarily have to happen. Genetic testing can be very beneficial from the standpoint of just understanding, like, what does my body have a potential to do? Because that will kind of give you the red flags as far as like how much you have to, let's just say, you have this in your gene code, and if you walk the line of that, and maybe dip over here and you're kind of here, but you can start drifting off into the disease land, versus if this is your potential for expressing a dis-ease process, you want to make sure that at least in that area you want to stay on much more to this side of things in order to prevent, because prevention is the cure. There's no question. Nothing can cure something better than preventing it from happening. So genetic testing, in my opinion, is beneficial in certain cases. Less than 1% of disease in this country or in this world is genetically based. So if you understand that, then your genes, you'll understand they're not your destiny, they're your opportunity. And just because you have a gene for something does not mean that they can tell you that that gene is active, which is really important to understand the difference. So when you can understand that people who have the BRCA1, BRCA2 gene, that doesn't mean that they're going to get breast cancer. As an example, it does not mean anything, because having a gene does not mean it's actually turning on or active and expressing. I'm sure someone's requesting to view the live. Looks like Ketone Living USA is asking us to be, okay. I don't know if I can do that right now, but I appreciate the opportunity. Why don't you reach out to us, Ketone Living USA, and we'll discuss making that happen in the future. Right now I'm not going to dink around with what I'm not an expert at, which is Instagram, because I could probably crash the thing. So we'll just leave it at that right now. But definitely reach out to us. Oh, hi Liz. How are you? Liz is looking to get on. I forgot that you had that handle. Okay, let's talk about that at a different time, okay? But for right now, let's talk about, you can eat right for your body type, just finishing off that comment. Eat right for your body type. There's a zone diet, there's eat right for your body type. Even within those, that's like taking the medical medium's advice and say that, everybody's got Epstein-Barr virus and everybody's got thyroid issues because of Epstein-Barr virus and things like that. No one thing causes any one thing, and no one illness or one challenge to the immune system is going to cause everything to happen and go wrong, okay? So when you understand that, you want to understand that you can change a lot of things through your lifestyle and how you send messages to your genes versus waiting around to see if your genetic code is going to express itself. There's a big difference. So I like to live on the side, way over on the side of prevention, so I don't have to worry about anything in my gene pool. If my mom, she had MS when she was 22, finally got diagnosed at 24. I was born to her at 28. So her system was, all jacked up when I was even in utero. So when you think about that, like I'm living like over here. If this is the potential for preventing or for developing something, I'm living over here in Preventionville, if you will. So do everything you can to prevent things. I'm not saying you can't deviate and tip over here sometimes, but the number of times you do that in a day and or in a month is really important to let you know that there's a higher chance of you developing challenges as a result of that. So just understand prevention's the cure. If you can prevent it, you'll never have to fix it. So favorite books. I read not necessarily for pleasure. I read more for education. Like Neil Riordan has a couple of good books on stem cells that I'm fascinated with. There's one based on research. It's a good 3 inches thick, and it's 30 years of research. And as well as he's got one for the layperson that doesn't need to understand that stuff. But I read books on marketing books for business. I read books for understanding children's health. Sarah has a book called Unconditional Parenting that's on my docket as far as getting to, because that's really important to understand, like, how can I be the best parent possible, especially not just in the first 7 years of her life, but her entire life. So there's a lot of different books you can read. If you read for pleasure, that's great. If you read for building a skill set, that's also good. It just depends on what area you want to focus on. Are you trying to learn something new, or are you just trying to relax and read a good story? I've personally never been a fiction reader. For me, it's never been an interest of mine. I mean, I'm just not someone that's going to plop down and read Harry Potter for a day. It's just not my gig. I believe they're fascinating stories, and it's great to have the imagination going. I mean, we read with Sophia every day in order to get her brain stimulated and get her excited about reading. I don't remember reading a lot of books as a kid with my parents, so I never had a passion for reading, but when it comes to things that I'm excited about, it's hard to get me to stop. Looks like Sarah typed in a question here, so I'm going to address that real quick. So I can get it expanded. So along the lines of eating for your body type, what about those people who are told you can eat anything you want, you must have good genes? If you want my professional opinion, that's an inaccurate statement. Because you can have good genes and you can eat like crap and end up trashing yourself. So what you put in your mouth is going to dictate your gut health, is going to dictate your brain health, is going to dictate a lot of different stuff. Okay, hopefully that answers that question, Sarah. I mean, we could talk about that for hours, but looks like Dylan joined us. How you doing, Dylan? Looks like Sarah has another portion of her question. See if I can tap on that to expand it. It says, why can't some people eat carbs or whatever they want and not be affected? Or why can they, I should say. Oopsie. I cannot expand your question there, Sarah, but we'll get to it. So some people, I know it looks like they can eat whatever they want, but really it's the amount that they're eating and the frequency with which they're eating whatever they want. Because each one of us has a different microbiome in our gut that processes things certain ways. Each one of us is wired a certain way to stress levels, because stress is going to totally jack up your food as far as in your gut. Like, imagine you're putting the most nurturing, healthy food into your gut, and yet you have a gut that's filled with cortisol and stress hormones and epinephrine and stuff like that that's stored in your liver, and your body's constantly in stress. So you can eat the healthiest diet on the planet and still be sick. I can assure you, my entire life, I was born into stress, and I learned how to operate in it, and I thrived in it, and now I'm trying to figure out how I can get myself out of that wet paper bag, because it's sticky and it's tight and it holds on to you. And when you are addicted to living by the hormones of stress, it's literally like a drug that's hard to give up. And you're just not aware of it. You're just operating your life as it is. And so, like, you can eat the most beneficial diet and have your guts all torn up, or you could be someone who's just totally chill and easy-go-lucky and relaxed and eat crappy food, quote-unquote, food-like substances, and not be affected as much, because your body's amazing. You put a piece of food in your mouth, and after a couple hours, that food becomes you, for the most part. You'd like to put good stuff in there in order to create a body that's healthful and a good vessel for you to ride around in and get the most out of enjoyment out of life. But ultimately, don't try to compare yourself to anybody else. Your journey is your journey. What you're able to eat, you're able to eat. What you're not able to eat is unique to you. What gives you problems doesn't give other people problems. So you can't sit there and say, well, why can they eat it and I can't? Or why can they eat whatever they want and I can't? And stuff like that. That you're just going to focus your energy on an area that's out of your control. Focus on what you have control over. Is like, I feel good when I eat this, and I don't feel well when I eat this. Focus your energy there. So when you do that, then you're going to have a lot better feeling about your life and what you're enjoying and stuff like that. Okay, so hopefully that I can't see the rest of your question, so I don't know if there's anything else. But it stops at not be affected as others are, question mark, just in case you want to type something else in there. Okay, Feng Shui and health. So Feng Shui, if I understand it correctly, is energy flow. Certainly, if whoever wrote that question in is on here and has a different interpretation of it, let me know. But I'm going to answer that question based on the assumption you're talking about energy flow and how it affects health. Absolutely. There's things called Feng Shui, there's things called Vastu Shastra, energy flow in your house, energetics about the earth, and things like that, and they will definitely affect your health. I mean, you can get down to the point where you look at where you have a mirror in your room and what direction it's facing and things like that, and how energy bounces off that and how it affects you, your sleep time and stuff like that. There's a lot to it. There's a lot more than I could care to even know about. What I do know is that these things definitely affect you. I know that we have Vastu balanced the last home we lived in. We have yet to do the one we are living in now. Things have just been too crazy up until now, but ultimately the energy in your world is going to dictate a good portion of your health. So Feng Shui, as far as you come into a home and how your energy flows through that, that's going to help your energy flow. So if your energy's really bad at flowing in through your house, it's going to be bad at flowing through your body. If the energetics coming out of the ground or the smart meter in your wall or your furnace or your microwave and stuff like that, if those are affecting your environment, those are definitely going to adversely affect your health, potentially, depending on how you're affected by it. So Feng Shui is definitely important as far as your health goes. Just start reading about it and learning about it and say, oh, how can I help energy flow better? And you don't have to be an expert at it, but just do your best at balancing Feng Shui and energy flow in your house, in your home, and in your life, right? I know Bruce Lee famously said, be like water. You know, water flows. It's the most gentle thing in some areas, and it's the most powerful thing in others. It'll find a way to move around and form itself around something. You put it in a cup, it becomes a cup. I put it in something else, it just becomes wherever it's in. So if you can flow like water and be agile and strong yet supple, imagine that's kind of how energy flow would be ideal in your world. Next question is, when is it appropriate to say sorry and when is it not appropriate? Well, generally speaking, if you do something to hurt someone, you know, not by necessarily intention, but if so you need to be conscious about how we say this, okay? So if someone says, you hurt my feelings, then they're a victim of you. Then they're giving you power over them. And so if you say sorry to them for something that you didn't do, you're taking on responsibility for their challenge, their pain, their struggle, things like that. So I would encourage you to say something to the extent of, if someone's having a difficult time in their life and you're their friend, loved one, or someone supporting them, say, gee, that sounds like a really challenging situation, really tough. It sounds devastating. Is there anything I can do to support you? What you hear most commonly, and what you've probably said 1,000, maybe 100,000, maybe more times, is that, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry to hear that. I'm so sorry about that. I'm so sorry that happened to you. But subconsciously what you're doing is you're saying, oh, let me take on some of your pain. Let me take on some responsibility for that happening so you feel less burdened. So it's coming from a good place, but it's coming from a point where you're taking on some of that responsibility. So I would encourage, unless you've done something either intentionally or unintentionally that hurt someone, presumably physically, because you know, if someone has an emotional reaction and they feel hurt because that's their choice, they're choosing to place meaning and value on what you said or done, that they feel hurt, they're giving power to you over them, which no one should do. Versus if you do something to hurt someone intentionally or unintentionally, physically, you say, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, that was not my intention. You know, if you cut somebody off, say, oh, you know, I'm so sorry about that, I didn't intend to do that. That's okay to say that. But if someone's feeling bad about something and they're having a struggle in their life, and you say sorry, that you're taking responsibility for it. So I'd strongly encourage you to consider using the verbiage of more like, that sounds very challenging, I'm sorry, it's a difficult situation, is there anything I can do to help? Is there any support I can provide for you? What does support for you look like for me? What does support look like, okay? Well, hopefully that makes sense there. So freckles or moles, okay? So typically, if you're talking about a freckle, that's a change in the melanin in the body, and there are different levels of melanin change. You may have heard of a melanoma, which is typically associated with skin cancer, rather. Freckles are a pigmentation, and it's really thinking about a change in the melanin in the skin, depending on how dark they are, to the extent of which the melanin is being challenged. But from what I understand, is that your body has free radicals that come in either through the food, water, air, or through the skin, something like that. You absorb them, and your body has to process them out. And if you can't process them out, it can create a freckle or a change in the skin, like a sunspot and things of that nature. And if you understand that, then if you keep your healthy liver, your liver detoxification going adequately, and you're emptying your bowels every day, and you're decreasing your toxicity, you should have fewer of them. Now, some people have genes that are providing more potential. Sorry about that, Insta family. Kick the tripod there. Hi, Christine. So the more toxins you have in your body, the greater inability you have to get them out. That's going to determine how many sunspots, skin spots, moles, and things like that develop. But basically, if you have one develop, you want to understand where it is and understand what part of your body it is, and then you can figure out what toxin is related to, what stress related it is in your life, who it might be the relationship involving, because nothing random happens in your body. There's absolutely nothing random that happens in your body. If you have a reaction in your body, it's because something's happened on the inside. So you might have excess toxicity, you might not have proper energy flow and things like that. It's like Christine and Sarah are saying hi to each other. All right, so that is basically not the most in-depth answer to that question, but really understand that freckles are developing for a reason. You just have to figure out what that is. We can help you figure out that if you want. What are words to be avoided to improve health? So anything you say, your brain is going to attract, if you will. Think about the words you say and the thoughts you have are energy, and they reverberate out like ripples in a pond, and they're going to attract more of what you're putting out there. As a result of that, you can think about things like saying negative self-talk. So Joel Osteen, I don't consume much of his information, but he's got a really good, one of his sermons, I guess you could call it, is about the I am principles. And I know a lot of people talk about this as far as self-talk, but if you say, I'm ugly, I'm stupid, I'm old, I'm weak, I'm this and that, I'm that, that's going to come looking for you. You're going to become older, you're going to become weaker, you're going to become uglier. Whatever it is you put after I am is going to determine how healthy you are, or how strong you are, or how wealthy you are, or how agile you are, or how intelligent you are. So if you understand that, you can understand that the words you choose to say are going to strongly influence your health. So if you're out there saying, you know what, I'm healthy, I'm strong, I'm agile, I'm resilient, I can bounce back quickly, all that stuff's you're gonna find more of it. Okay, I would strongly encourage you to be monitoring, not in an obsessive manner, but monitor your self-talk, because if you can monitor it, you can hear the conversation within. And sometimes you gotta have a conversation with yourself and say, you know what, that's just negative, and I'm not gonna allow that anymore. Each one of us can face different things at different times in our life, especially under different circumstances. We have different times in our life when things are more challenging, more trying, and as a result, what can happen is we can lose track of our self-talk, and we can be focused on the negative versus the positive. So you don't need to be Pollyanna and expect everything to be perfect and ideal, but you know, as this mug says, you got to proceed as if success is inevitable. So your self-talk should be of the frame that you're going to proceed as if your success is inevitable, your health is inevitable, your wealth is inevitable, your strength is inevitable, whatever it might be, and avoid saying, especially with food choices. I was just doing a podcast interview this morning with Crystal, and we were talking about that kind of stuff. Basically how you frame that is going to determine your life. So you gotta pay attention to what you're saying and how you're saying it and what you're doing with your mind, because your mind is what controls every cell in your body. Okay? So avoid the negative, accentuate the positives, as they say, and things like that. Moving on to our next question, how bad is it to eat food from a can? Well, a can is a form of processed food, okay? So even if you get a can of diced tomatoes, they still have to put some type of preservative in there. So if you put anything in a can or in a box, it has to be preserved in some way, shape, or form. We generally recommend that if you can pull it out of the ground and eat it, or if you can shoot it with a bow and arrow and eat it, strongly encourage you to do so. Bow and arrow is a metaphor. You can use a fishing line, thing like that, depending on what your choice is. But the metaphor is that if you can hunt it and gather it, eat it. If it has to be purchased in a box, then you want to be wary of it per se. It's processed. It's either highly heated or it has frankenfoods in there, oils and things like that. They're going to adversely affect your health. So basically, I would avoid eating things from a can as much as possible, just as I would avoid eating things from a box as much as possible. Because if it's in a container, it has been processed by a man in a manufacturing plant, and it's not necessarily coming from a plant in the ground or from an animal that we may have been able to hunt down. If you want my 2 cents on that. All right, so why do most people have less than perfect eyesight? Well, a lot of that has to do with what you're receiving as far as your capabilities when you're born. Each one of us has the ability to have 20/20 or not. It just depends on what set of cards we're dealt with when we're born and how we support them as we go on. So if you are constantly exposed to really bright lights or a lot of laser light or things like that, you could damage your eyesight. As far as a chronic repetitive influence or insult to your eye vision. Some people spend a lot of time looking at screens. That can be very tiresome on the eyes. Some people develop cataracts or glaucoma or macular degeneration. All of those, of course, are going to be related to somehow a conflict in the brain. People get floaters in their eyes, which are typically parasites. People get diabetic retinopathy and things like that, swelling of the blood vessels in the back of the eye, which puts pressure on the lens and stuff like that. There's a lot of different things that can affect the eyes. But, what you're born with is what you have to build from. It's not necessarily going to dictate your health, but you have a platform, you have sort of a foundation to build from. So each person has a different foundation to build from based on the health of their mother when they were being carried by her, the amount of nutrients she took in, her eyes before she had you, state of her health and things like that, and also the stress you develop or endure during your lifetime. If you understand that your stress can affect you, not just your bowels or your skin or your breath or your breathing, I should say, but it can affect your eyes as well. It can affect your cognitive capabilities and things like that, your ability to bounce back and things of that nature. So there's a lot of different things that can affect your eyesight. I know one of our participants has had challenges with her eyes. She's had to turn a blind eye to a lot of things in her life, and that can affect your eyesight if you want to talk about metaphorical things. So if you haven't been traumatized in the eyeball, you haven't been injured there, something's causing it to become weaker, okay? So it's either in the brain, which I guess in the absence of trauma, it's always going to come from the brain. It could be excessive assault to the eye through the just visual cortex and things like that. There's a lot of different things that can cause eyesight to be weakened, but perfect eyesight is based on, just like people say you should have, your blood pressure should be 120/80. Well, you should have 20/20 vision as well. Everybody's different. Everybody's coming from a different point. Certainly with blood pressure, you're going to have wild variations in terms of blood pressure. So that, less than perfect eyesight is a product of many things. Your ability to detoxify free radicals, your ability to have strong eyes, healthy eyes when you're born. You've probably seen some kiddos out there with different lenses on there, trying to correct either maybe their eye drifts or something like that, or they have nearsighted, farsighted kind of things. They have to wear glasses like that, but everybody's a little different. So I don't see nobody's really posted any questions today. Just trying to check what time it is. Let's go like this. Well, yeah, 12:56. Fantastic. So I'll hang out here for a couple more minutes to see if anybody has any questions that they want to post on there. Obviously, we had a lot of great questions today. 13 questions plus what Sarah provided as far as feedback on here, which is great. So that's what this is all about, providing useful information, actionable information that you can use to enhance your life, to improve your life, to live your best life. That's what we're here for. We're here to empower you, educate you, and help you heal, help you find the healer inside of you, help you find the the true health you have within you and ditch the diagnosis. Let go of someone else's belief as far as what your health should be like, what you should be limited to, and things like that. Ultimately, the only one that's going to determine how long you live, how well you live, and how much you enjoy that life is going to be you. Just like our relationships. You're the only one you're going to never leave or lose. That's why you need to be good with, be good with number one. Reconcile any inner conflicts you have, any stresses you might have. Feel good about yourself, deeply and completely love and accept yourself so that you can live your best life, because when you accept yourself, other people will accept you for who you are. So, in the absence of anything else, looks like Amelia from Earth joined us. Hi, Amelia. Coming to the tail end here, but great. So, I guess with that, since nobody's popping a question on here, let's look forward to rendezvousing next Wednesday for the Wednesday Wellness Minutes. We will make sure our mics are working adequately and we'll have good sound so you can hear us, and we can provide value for you and your family and your loved ones. Okay? So for right now, we'll sign off, but wishing everybody a great weekend, and we'll go from there. All right? Take good care, everyone. Have a great weekend. Bye-bye.